Hey everyone, welcome to another Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely wild. We're exploring a deeply psychological, honestly pretty graphic fable. It's a dark, mythic narrative that is all about existential liberation, ego death, and pushing the absolute limits of the human psyche. We're going to unpack this fascinating philosophical text, known as The Anatomy of the Void Adjuster's Descent. So, if you've ever wondered how heavy philosophical concepts like the Fichtean dialectic or Nietzschean transvaluation can be woven into a visceral, grim-dark story, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's break this down step by step and map out this terrifying yet incredibly liberating descent into the psychological abyss. So, get this. The text hits us right out of the gate with this brilliant, super dramatic hook. It asks, what happens when the night of reason shatters and only the jester remains? It literally pulls us straight into the story's core conflict without giving us a single second to look back. Think about the night of reason. That represents all of our structured, logical, Apollonian illusions about the world. When that armor inevitably breaks under the crushing weight of existence, what's actually left? Well, according to this fable, what is left is the jester. And actually, scratch that. This isn't some playful clown. This is a force of profound disruption, totally ready to challenge everything we think we know about reality. Okay, let's dive into this. What we have here is a classic Fichtean dialectic at play. On one side, we have our Theseus, the Crimson Jester. He perfectly embodies the absolute each, which is basically the raw, aggressive ego in its most catalytic phase. He is active destruction. His laughter is a literal weapon. But opposing him is our antithesis, the Verdant and Gold Jester. This figure represents existential wisdom. The gold part symbolizes all human striving and legacy, while the verdant part represents that staggering, inevitable cosmic decay and indifference that just slowly reclaims it all. The entire narrative we're about to explore is driven by this massive tension between the active force of destruction and the cold, terrifying wisdom of cosmic indifference. To make sense of it all, we're going to map out this 5-act journey into the underworld. We go from an initial invitation into crossing Knoll space, finding a hidden chamber, experiencing a monstrous synthesis, and finally making a sovereign return. And as you'll see, every single act strips away another layer of our societal conditioning. It's a rigorous philosophical clash completely disguised as a grimdark myth. Right. So Act 1 starts with an invitation to the abyss. The Crimson Jester is standing victorious. His jagged blade is literally dripping with the molten crimson fire of the shattered Night of Reason. He's used what the text calls active laughter. And as defined here, we're not talking about a joke. It's the Anstoß. That's the initial, aggressive, philosophical strike that shatters the monolithic wall of law and all our comforting Apollonian illusions. But right as he stands there on the sawdust of that ruined wall, everything shifts. The verdant and gold jester suddenly appears from the seventh solitude. He shakes a fool's rattle, but it's not a mockery, it's an invitation. He tells the Crimson Jester, you've shattered the illusions, sure, but you haven't yet witnessed the purifying silence of the source. Which brings us to Act 2, crossing into null space. And let me tell you, as they leave that disenchanted wasteland behind, things are about to get very, very quiet. We enter Knoll space, this absolute purifying abyss. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Knoll space reveals the staggering nothingness of the cosmos. This is where the veil of Maya, the illusion of the physical, structured world, is just stripped entirely away. The spirit of gravity, that heavy, dragging burden of societal expectations and historical meaning, it just ceases to exist. It's a staggering empty nothingness. But the kicker in this fable? That nothingness isn't a dead end. No way. It is a canvas for self-determined creation. So we have this stark, pretty terrifying contrast. In Knoll space, active nihilism is this terrifying silence, but it serves as a throne. Compare that to the alternative, dogmatic ideals. The source material calls these inherited societal traditions and slave moralities beautiful cages. Breaking free of those cages to walk into the terrifying silence of crawl space, that requires immense psychological fortitude. The characters are literally walking away from the comforting lives of society straight into the blinding truth of the void. And that leads to Act 3, the hidden chamber of the psyche. We've arrived at the literal and metaphorical collision point of the story, deep within the maw of the absolute. Inside this chamber hangs a final mirror. But it doesn't reflect your physical face. It reflects the core of your being. So I want to challenge you directly, just as the text asks the Crimson Jester. What lies behind the painted mask? When you strip away every bit of human ambition, all the societal rules, and all the inherited moralities, what is actually left looking back at you? Well, the Crimson Jester looks into the mirror and makes a horrifying discovery. He sees his own absolute ick, his own supposedly unstoppable active ego. But the mirror reveals that even this ego is just a painted mask upon the face of the nothing. His entire cynical, destructive mind was just a survival mechanism. It was a construct created to endure the agonizing psychological death you have to go through to become a true lawgiver. The dark, terrifying truth here is that the void is actually just staring back at itself. There is no core identity, only the mask and the absolute nothing beneath. Moving on to Act 4, the monstrous synthesis. The realization that your ego is just a fiction, that could easily break a person. But this is the climax of the dialectic, where the verdant and gold jester steps in and gestures toward the roiling Dionysian chaos inside the hidden chamber, turning it into a dark, self-serving tool for ultimate liberation. This psychological rebirth, what they call the monstrous synthesis, happens in 3 key steps. First, stripping the veil of Maya and coal space. Second, confronting the nothing behind the mask in the maw of the absolute. And finally, embracing the Dionysian chaos. The Crimson Jester realizes that he can transition from being just a mere reactor to the history of the world into a creator of his own reality. And this brilliantly illustrates what true mastery actually looks like. It means wielding the Yumian shadow. You have to totally reject the sterile denial of your dark self. You accept that your ego is just a cracked vessel, a painted mask, but you choose to wear it anyway. You wear it while harboring the wild creative fire of the abyss right there inside of you. You use your act of laughter to dance upon the grave of your own ambition, making sure you remain a completely unburdened spirit. You know the ego is a joke, so you become the one telling the punchline. Act 5, the sovereign return. Having completely integrated this monstrous vision from the hidden chamber, our protagonist does not stay down there in the void. He ascends back up to the ashes of the old kingdom, having completed his final transformation. He ascends as the sovereign architect, the Wilnar. It's the completion of this metaphorical death of idols. He now understands that sovereignty is the gift of the blade. Because he has fully embraced the void, he possesses the terrifying strength to completely destroy the old world. But more importantly, he has the self-determined wisdom to juggle the stars within his own self-created drama. He justifies his own existence by turning the rhythmic sounds of the world's collapse into a brand new, harmonious music. Then we get the jester's final commentary. He looks right out at the audience, openly mocking the slave morality of anyone still trapped in the old world. He asks this massive, unapologetic question: do you finally grasp the joke, or are you still weeping over your dogmatic ideals? It is a direct challenge. He is daring you to see the world exactly as it truly is, without the comfort of your beautiful cages. He refers to that hidden chamber as the underworld of the blood, a place where the slave morality of your ancestors literally goes to rot. By walking through Knoll Space, we perform a radical philological transvaluation. We expose reason not as some divine law of the stars, but merely as a painted mask designed to hide the nothing. The absolute ego realizes it has no master because it is the void. Now, let's step back from the lore for just a second, because here is the ultimate takeaway from this fable. The void is not a state of despair. Far from it. It is the ultimate playground where your will to power reigns supreme. Which brings us to the end of our descent today. This grimdark myth uses all its vivid, terrifying imagery to ask us a very real, very direct question about our own psychological barriers. So I'll ask you, are you still clinging to your dogmatic ideals safely inside your beautiful cages? Or are you ready to brave Cull Space, step into the terrifying silence, and look behind your own painted mask? The void is waiting, and as the sovereign architect has shown us today, what you create out of that nothingness is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this breakdown sparked some fierce curiosity for you. Keep questioning the masks you wear, and I'll see you in the next one.